And I'll start out by saying you're joining us today for the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program Capstone Cohort Informational Webinar. We're so excited to have everybody here today and to share a little bit more information about this opportunity we're really excited about. My name is Emily Hestness. I am an education specialist here at the United States Botanic Garden in Washington, D.C. I wanted to start out with just a little bit of housekeeping for everyone to kind of know what to expect today. This program is being recorded and it will be posted on the association website for future viewing. The slides that you see today are also going to be posted if you'd like to reference those again. And then on the website, you can find questions and answers that we have received about this program. We're going to continue to post questions and answers that we receive during the time frame that the application is open. So today's program is really going to highlight a selection of those that we've received already, but not everything. So to find everything and any new questions that are coming in, you can visit the program website. Today's session is going to give you an opportunity to ask your questions in the Q&A, but we are going to be collecting those and preparing answers to post on the website. So this is not going to be a live Q&A today, but we are looking forward to sort of learning what you would like to know about the program so we can make sure that we are giving as clear and thorough information about it as possible as you are looking at preparing your application. So thanks for understanding that, and just thanks for your interest in this program. We're really excited to talk more with you about it. Perfect. And so throughout this session, we're going to be sharing some links with you if you want to reference anything that we're talking about as we're talking about it. And so Ray has shared the link to the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program Capstone Cohort webpage. And so that is going to be the place to go for all of this information. So good one to bookmark and have and check back regularly. With that, I think we can move forward to the next slide and take a look at the agenda for this session. All right, so we're going to start out with introductions, and we'll pause and do that before I go through the rest of the agenda. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat and haven't done that yet, we would love for you to do that. Tell us where you're joining from. And then we're going to do some verbal introductions of the team that's here today who's going to be collaborating to plan and facilitate the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program Capstone Cohort. And so my name is Emily Hestness again. I'm from the United States Botanic Garden in DC. I am joined by my colleague Ray from the US Botanic Garden. If you want to say hi, Ray.
Hi, Ray Mims, the U.S. Botanic Garden, and I help Emily and Bailey with the Urban Ag Resilience Program.
All right, and then we're thrilled to partner again with the American Public Gardens Association to facilitate this program. And from APGA, we have Bailey, if you'd like to say hello.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Bailey, Programs, Initiatives, and Networks Coordinator at the American Public Gardens Association. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, thanks, Bailey. And then we are also thrilled to be bringing in a new collaborator on this program, Chicago Botanic Gardens Windy City Harvest. And so I'll invite the Windy City Harvest team to say hello if we want to start with Kelly.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. So super happy to be here. I'm Associate Vice President of Community Engagement for the Chicago Botanic Garden, and that area really works closely with our Windy City Harvest program and therapeutic horticulture programming. I'll pass the torch over to Paul Kreisig.
Hello, everyone. Paul Kreisig. I am Director of Strategic Initiatives. I work closely with our prescription box program, our horticultural therapy services, contract services, and also just sales across the department. Now I will pass it over to Rosario.
Good day, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rosario Maldonado. I am currently Interim Operations Director and Small Farm Business Manager, overseeing the operations of our 15 farm sites across the city. We have about 8 acres combined, and running our incubator farm program where we lease 1/8 of an acre plots to graduates from our apprenticeship program that also took a business course with our partner, Sunshine Enterprises. Glad to see you guys here. Kicking it to Britt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Britt Klendo. I'm the program director for Windy City Harvest. So I oversee our 3 youth farms, Harvest Corps, which is our transitional jobs program, working with people who've been involved with the justice system, and then our 9-month apprenticeship program, which is in partnership with the City Colleges of Chicago and is a certificate in sustainable urban agriculture.
Great, thank you, everyone. Thanks for the introductions there in the chat. And from the 3 organizations working together on this project, we're really excited to have you all with us. Thanks again. And with that, I'll just walk you through a little bit of what to expect during this session. I'm going to speak a bit about the history of the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program, as well as give you an overview of what the timeline is going to be for this upcoming program year, and sort of what the program will entail. Then I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and she's going to talk a bit about program implementation and mentoring. After that, Bailey will talk about the priorities of this year's program, eligibility, and the application process. I'll speak a bit about reporting and sharing and marketing, and then we will go over to Q&A. Again, you're welcome to submit questions during this session for us to consider and add to our Q&A page, but this session will be focused on questions that we've received prior to this session. Okay, so we're going to start out with a little bit of history of the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program. You can find this on the U.S. Botanic Garden website too, information about past program years. But just to say, we began this in 2020. This was a collaboration between the U.S. Botanic Garden and American Public Gardens Association. At that time, the purpose was to provide immediate support and prevent shortfalls for urban agriculture and food growing programs at public gardens that were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which was many of us. We had a really enthusiastic response that year, and were able to provide 28 gardens with awards of $5,000 to $15,000. Those funds were used for activities like food production and distribution, providing community members and community organizations with supplies and materials for food production, education and technical support, and providing internship and training opportunities for individuals. So that year we collected data, we collected reflections from awardees at the end, and came to a decision that it was something that we wanted to continue, but that we wanted to make a few adjustments. In particular, we really saw that community partners were essential to every single one of the awarded programs. You know, we had 28 awards that year, but we learned that at least 84 additional community partners were involved in that work. And so we really wanted to elevate the importance of partnerships in future iterations of the program. So for that second year in 2021, that's when Bailey came on board and began to support this program as well. We received 59 applications that year. We're able to award 21. And projects were focused on leveraging assets of a public garden and a partner organization. We wanted people to be combining food growing and education, facilitating public engagement in food growing, and benefiting audiences experiencing food insecurity challenges. So we added a new evaluation component that year, which was mid-program conversations, and we had a chance to really sit down and meet with awardees and small groups to understand how things were going kind of in the middle of the program and get some feedback on what adjustments might be worth considering for the future. And we also, again, collected end of program reflections. So at that point, we had some kind of new practical and new big picture food for thought that we were thinking about. One was that we heard loud and clear that the program timeline needed to be adjusted to earlier to better align with people's growing seasons and what you were doing programmatically. So we did that for the following year. And then we found ourselves at the end of the program now with some organizations who had received the award multiple years, and we're kind of thinking about what was next. And so we started to think too about what was next for this program, and the identity of one that started from more of this emergency relief place that was now moving into this capacity building and supporting programs so they could really get to a place where they could be sustained. So that was on our minds, and we were kind of thinking about what we would need to adjust to really make that a reality. We wanted to continue the program. We'd gotten great feedback on how it had operated in that second year. And we knew that we needed a sooner timeline. So we did open it up again in 2022. For that 2022 program, we made another small change, which was that we wanted to continue supporting diverse projects. And so we said that projects should be between public gardens and community partners that were new projects or that were existing projects that were incorporating a significant new component, just so we could be awarding new kinds of things. So in 2022, we were able to award 24 projects and we had a total award amount of $440,000, which was the largest amount awarded through the program to date. So it's been growing a little bit each time. And some of you may have been with us on this journey if you're a past awardee and you've been kind of learning along with us. And some of you might be hearing about it for the first time about where we've been, but hopefully that background is useful for everyone for kind of better understanding this next step we're taking with the program. Okay. So I mentioned our interest in the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program having more of a capacity building component to it. And during the same time frame that this program's been going on, and even a bit before it's been going on, we at the U.S. Botanic Garden have had this separate collaboration with Chicago Botanic Gardens Windy City Harvest, which has been focused on this goal of capacity building in the public gardens world in urban agriculture. So when our garden began to sort of think about urban agriculture as an area we wanted to engage, Chicago was one of the first gardens that we talked to. And before I joined the USBG, Ray and others worked to develop a cooperative agreement with Chicago Botanic Garden, which was around providing trainings and resources for organizations in urban agriculture. So in 2019, we worked together to host our first food, health, and jobs training for public garden professionals in Chicago. And the photo that you see here is from that training. We were visiting the farm on Ogden in this photo. Some of you might have been there. This is a 3-day workshop that focused on really big picture ideas for gardens interested in either initiating or expanding urban agriculture programming. So covering things like program design, site design, developing community partnerships, record keeping, evaluation, all that good stuff. It was really an exciting workshop, and kind of already in our follow-up conversations, we were thinking about what would come next after that. In particular, we wondered about what follow-up or what individualized support might participants need to really put the workshop ideas into action. We had started out with a commitment to do 3 of these workshops and kind of see where it took us. So we offered a couple more of them. The next one happened in 2020 in New Orleans at the very, very beginning of the pandemic in March. That was in conjunction with the Good Food Network conference. And we were happy to get that in before everyone went into quarantine. It was a great, great training that we did together. And then we offered another one in 2021, which because of the pandemic was virtual, and some of you might have joined us for that. And then over that time frame, we were simultaneously working together to create a resource manual or toolkit that encompassed the big ideas that we were sharing in those trainings. We were able to publish that in 2021, and we can share a link to that for those of you who might be interested. It's available both on the U.S. Botanic Garden website and the Chicago Botanic Garden website as a collaborative effort. And then after we kind of completed those activities, we found ourselves here in 2022 thinking about what would be next for our work together. Okay, so that leads us to our current opportunity with the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program Capstone Cohort. So we are bringing together the work that's been done over the first 3 years of the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program with the association, as well as the work that's been done over 3 years of these capacity building trainings with Chicago Botanic Gardens, Windy City Harvest to kind of try something new together. So for this round of the award, we are calling for applicants who are at a point in their work where they have established programs that they're really seeking to sustain and institutionalize. What is different this time around is that instead of providing a relatively large number of awards at a smaller award amount, we are really seeking to create a cohort of no more than probably 7 organizations who will receive a larger award amount, this time $50,000, along with group and individual level mentoring with Chicago Botanic Gardens, Windy City Harvest. So our goal is that the awarded programs are going to build capacity and leadership, not only to strengthen their own programs at their institutions, but also to strengthen our public gardens community as a whole, and really share those strong programmatic models and lessons learned sort of in getting those to a sustainable place. I'll just talk briefly about the program timeline. This can be found in the criteria document that's on the website. So if you want to reference it again, Ray has just shared that in the chat. We have the call for applicants open. It's open now through November 1st. We are here at the informational webinar. We're going to select and notify applicants by December 5th. And then the first meeting will happen in January 2023. There will be a year of implementation from January to January. And I'm gonna gloss over that for a moment because we're gonna get into it more deeply. We're going to have reporting due then that following February. And then sort of a new piece here is that we want to have some more formalized and baked into the program sharing of what we learned from it. So there will be some work on the cohort's behalf and the cohort's part to plan a presentation in that spring following the program, and then to share that out in the summer. So that's sort of a quick overview of what you could expect and what the time commitments will be. Next slide, please. With this, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly to talk a little bit about the program year and what the mentoring component will look like.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you, Ray, for dropping mentorship concepts, the toolkit in the chat. That is, if you're really kind of looking at some of the areas and concepts that we feel that we're a good partner for, that definitely captures many of the elements and our priority areas that we're going to, that we feel that, you know, again, we could be the best partner for would be workforce development. So Britt Calendo will talk about this a little bit in a little bit further in detail, but as you know, we run a re-entry program and use our farms as the vehicle for that, as a paid work experience for justice impacted individuals. So that's one area that we feel pretty confident in knowing a good model. We've been running that for 14 years successfully here in the city and seen a 71% placement rate in the industry, which is well above the national average for transitional jobs. So we're very proud of that. Our Food as Medicine program is our produce prescription program that we run in partnership with 4 federally qualified health centers. And this is actually a market channel for us and for our farmers, as well as a way to have a deep, meaningful connection to communities and impact health outcomes. That'll be something that Paul Kreisig will speak to. We've run that, it grew quite a bit in the pandemic. So even some of you that we know from this call, things have changed so much. And so we'll be excited to kind of share on that. As far as urban agriculture, adult education, we really do focus on growing the next generation of farmers through our apprenticeship at City Colleges of Chicago. 20 individuals a year, cohort based. Britt will speak to that quite a bit. And then where we began 20 years ago was with youth education. So that's something that we still to this day are very specific about. Yes, that is a priority. And then when it comes down to sustainable farming production, specifically diversified vegetable production, this is something that all of us on the team have worked with in different ways. I know several of us on this call have had follow-ups about just even thinking through hoop houses, crop plans, price points. So I think we're all kind of a resource on that. And then small farm business support, Rosario Maldonado runs. And that is our farmer incubator program, where we host on our land incubator farmers who are taking the time after going through our apprenticeship and sometimes youth farm or core to take a business class and really run their own farm business and market their produce through our channels, but also developing others. So that's been a huge point of impact for us. And those are kind of our areas of priority. But we are also excited to learn from the applicants some of the more specific questions about it. But this toolkit, I think, is one of the best deep dives you can ever see. We spent so much time looking at the program and how it grew over 20 years and trying to do our best to really capture each of the areas. So some of that you'll see is kind of beyond some of the things listed here, but these are the areas where we feel the most confident in being able to really be a good mentor and partner. And the way this is going to kick off, the program implementation and mentoring, it's going to kick off virtually in January. And this is going to be where the group comes together and shares their projects and discusses their goals. And so this will be run by the Botanic Garden and the Chicago Botanic Garden and US Botanic Garden virtually. And then we're going to start running one-on-one virtual sessions with the grantees. So we'll meet individually online. And this can be, with the mentors and their staff. And that's also going to be virtual. So we'll schedule those anywhere from February to April in 2023. And then we will do a spring, kind of very similar, where we go back to that group setting and we'll be meeting virtually April 26th. And that is going to be a professional development session and group discussion with the mentors. And then we will come back all together, actually in real life, in person here in Chicago, September 14th and 15th. And that's going to be site visits to really hear from not only us, but our alumni, program participants, and get to really spend an amazing time together in person. And then our fall check-in will also be virtual in November, again, as a group to discuss the ongoing professional development and group discussion with mentors, report outs. And then we'll have, again, virtual one-on-ones in November through January as kind of our final. This will be each group one occasion during that time frame, but it will be really looking at our projects and kind of some of the outcomes from the time that we've spent together and planning for the presentations in 2024.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. So kind of explaining a little bit more about the Capstone Cohort priorities that we've mentioned a few times now. This can be found on the second page of the criteria document that Ray has shared in the chat. Everything here is in that document as well. So the Capstone priorities will be given to the programs that demonstrate the ability to use the award to advance their project towards long-term sustainability. They also show evidence they creatively utilize or leverage the assets of a U.S. public garden and community partners in their projects. And you'll see that these partners could include many different kinds of organizations. There's a list here on the slides and in the criteria document, some of which include parks, other public gardens, small businesses, other nonprofits, other educational institutions. Concerted efforts to combine food growing and education, particularly through the types of projects that Kelly was just talking about as priorities for Windy City Harvest. Facilitation of public engagement in urban food growing, direct benefit to audiences or participants experiencing food security challenges, including those exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ability to use the award to increase capacity in urban agriculture within and beyond the public gardens community. We also have eligibility requirements for these awards, and this is on the first page of the criteria document that Ray has shared. All eligible applicants will be a U.S. public garden, and they will include a letter of support signed by their director or CEO in their application. All eligible projects must combine food growing and education and serve audiences experiencing food insecurity in urban areas. Awards will support existing projects seeking to sustain and institutionalize their work. And awardees must commit to attending the online and in-person meetings that Kelly just mentioned, where there are 3 online full group meetings, a couple of one-on-one sessions, and the in-person visit to Chicago. Allotting a percentage of your award funds for the travel to Chicago, which you will need to include in your budget during the application process. You'll also need to publicly share results and lessons learned from the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program project and the Capstone Cohort experience. And I wanted to add here that this is very highly competitive award category. We anticipate funding up to 7 Capstone Awards, and Capstone Awards will only be awarded to a project once. So some of you might be asking, what is a public garden? As that is one of our main criteria, eligibility criteria for the program. And you can find that on the American Public Gardens website. We have a page about what is a public garden, and this definition is presented there. So a public garden is an institution that maintains collections of plants for the purposes of public education and enjoyment, in addition to research, conservation, and higher learning. It must be open to the public, and the garden's resources and accommodations must be made available to all visitors. Public gardens are staffed by professionals trained in their given areas of expertise and maintain active plant record systems. And now we'll dive a bit more into the application process. So here you'll see a bit of a timeline and some of the more important details related to the application process. So applications are open now, and they are due by November 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, using our online application form. Awardees will again be notified by December 5th. Funding is expected to be dispersed by early January, and final reports will be due February 1st of 2024. The award amount is $50,000 for every awardee that is selected. We do not have a range for this year, so that is something that is different. All awards given will be $50,000. All right, so here is a screenshot of our website, the Capstone Cohort website. And if you scroll down on our website, you'll see this area that has everything, all these important links that Ray has been linking in the chat are all located here, and hopefully easy to find for you. So you'll find links to the online application, as well as at the top, you'll see in this first box, complete list of criteria. That's the criteria document. In this second box, preview of the application questions in a PDF format, which can be really handy as it's difficult to go through the survey. If you're just wanting to look at all the questions, I recommend starting with this PDF. And then in this third box that I have here, there's our link to a definition of public garden. And the last one is the link to the budget document, which I will go over in a little bit more detail in a few slides from now. So what do you need to complete the application? So this is what the application, the front page of the application looks like when you get there. A couple of important links. If you're here and you're wanting to look at the PDF, that is linked here. So starting to go through the application, we will provide some information about your public garden and the contact for the program lead. This program lead will be the main point of contact that we reach out to, and will be the one attending the cohort meetings ideally. I will mention that if the person submitting this application is not the program lead, the application will then give you the opportunity to put in the person who's filling out the application's information as well. Then we go on to ask about project information. So we will ask if you've received an award previously. And if you have partners, we ask that you list them so we can know who your partner organizations are. And then we get into more of the text writing based questions. So we want to know about your program. We want you to describe its history to us. We want to then have you answer how the program addresses food security challenges in your community, how the program combines education and food growing, how project staff benefit from peer mentoring experience, what are you looking to learn or improve, and how would the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program Capstone Award help you build capacity and advance your program towards long-term sustainability. So those, and you will also need to have a budget form filled out to upload into your application, and a letter of support from the director or CEO. So it'll be 2 additional documents you'll want to come prepared with in the application. If you have any issues uploading the documents into the form and need to email them, just reach out to me. My email is on the website and listed here as well. And then we check in and make sure that you included expenses for travel to Chicago in your budget. And then we're going to be asking how many individuals will be traveling to Chicago. Minimum 1, maximum is 2. And then you will affirm that you are authorized to submit this proposal and you agree to our program criteria, and your application is submitted. This is what the budget form looks like that we have. So the areas, the boxes that are white and not green are editable cells that you will include your project budget and details in. And so all limitations to budgets are listed here in this document. The most important one being that your budget request must equal $50,000 because all awards are $50,000. A couple of other things I will point out is that we have a limit on fringe benefits and indirect costs here as well. And you'll see that in the second to last line, there is a spot for Chicago event expenses. So we want you to include expenses of going to the in-person cohort gathering in Chicago, hotel, flights, ground transportation, include that in your budget of your $50,000 award here. I'll hand things over to Emily, talk about reporting.
Great, thanks. I wanted to share just a little bit more. Bailey's been talking about the application process. So a couple more details about things you would want to expect once awarded. There's going to be some reporting requirements, which we try to make useful and not too burdensome. We're going to ask you to complete a pre and post program self-assessment, just sort of where you're at with your urban agriculture project. And that's something that we will provide when the time comes. We will also ask you to complete an end of program reporting tool, which is going to ask you for a few things, some quantitative and qualitative information, some photos of your program in action, and some documentation of your expenditures. We are going to, when we talk about reporting in terms of quantitative and qualitative information that we're interested in, there's a few things that we're going to be wanting you to track during the award year. And these are things like number of participants served, pounds of food grown. These are simply things that we like to know when we're communicating about this work and this cohort as a whole. And then qualitatively, we're going to be asking you to write some reflections on the extent to which the program helped you meet your goals, lessons you learned from the experience, and kind of your perspective on your program's sustainability following your participation. So that's just a little bit about what to expect with reporting. Next slide, please. Earlier, we mentioned a sharing component. So we're going to be asking awardees to publicly share the results of their work and lessons learned to your peers in the public gardens community. So again, we will do some planning at the end of the award year with the intention of being ready to share that following summer, so the summer of 2024. And then just a brief note about communications with this project. If you are awarded, you may want to communicate about your participation in the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program Capstone Cohort. So just a few notes. We would ask that you always ensure that you communicate about this as an award, not a grant. This is not a grants program. We will be asking you for photos again. Our organizations may communicate about this program, APGA, USBG, and CBG, using your photos as well as the descriptions that you provide of your program on your application. So that's just something to know when you're writing it, that there's a potential for it to be used for communications purposes. And then finally, if your organization chooses to communicate about your participation in the cohort, we would ask that you co-brand those communications with our organizations, and we can provide more guidance on that once awardees are selected and the award year is approaching. But those are just some things to know to expect. And with that, we will hand things back over to Bailey for the Q&A.
Yeah, so as we mentioned today, we're going to go over the questions we received leading up to today's webinar. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A, and we'll make sure that they are added to our, or already included in our Q&A webpage. So first question, how competitive is this award? This is, as I mentioned, highly competitive. We anticipate funding up to 7 awards, and Capstone Awards will be awarded to a project only one time. So we are planning on doing less awards than the Urban Agriculture Resilience Program has done previously.
Okay, here's a question. Do we have to be a member of APGA to apply, and does the applicant need to be located in the US? No, you do not need to be a member of APGA. All public gardens, as long as you meet the criteria, are eligible. Eligible applicants must, yes, be a US public garden.
Can our organization apply this year if we applied for or received last year's award? Yes, so previously awarded projects and those that have applied but not been awarded, or those that have never applied, can all apply for these Capstone Cohort Awards.
Is my organization eligible to apply? We are not giving individual application advice, but we would suggest that you revisit all of those eligibility requirements that are included in the criteria document, which you can continue to reference.
Is there potential for this program to include after school and educational curriculum? I think what this question is asking is if their project can focus on those things. And yes, award eligible projects must combine food growing and education. And if you're doing that in this way, that could definitely be something that your project focuses on.
Okay. Here's one. Can more than one program in an organization co-apply for the award for multi-use? If not, can more than one program be awarded individually within the same organization? So really, these awards are intended to support a singular program at an organization. If there are 2 groups within the same organization that collaborate on one project, you would designate one to apply as the primary awardee. If more than one group from the same organization applies separately, it would be unlikely that both would be awarded.
Does receiving the award last year make you more or less competitive for this year? So do note that this is a different program and we have different criteria for this year, but receiving any previous Urban Agriculture Resilience Program award does not make your application more or less competitive. It is not considered.
Okay. Can you give us an idea about the review criteria? If there is a section that are weighted more, how much is the budget taken into consideration when reviewing? So again, we will point you to our criteria document. The most important things that we're going to be looking at are listed there, including alignment with both the program priorities and those mentoring priority areas that Kelly was talking about. How you budget to use the funds outside of those restrictions that Bailey mentioned, it doesn't play a role in the decision. After developing a list of finalists based upon our initial review and looking at those criteria and priorities, what we're going to do is really seek to create a diverse and balanced cohort. So we want to represent diversity in a few ways in terms of things like geography, audiences served, garden size, and program models. So that's sort of another level of things that we look at when establishing the cohort. Okay, with these ones, we'll pass over to Kelly.
All right. So as far as mentoring, the question here, how many people from our organization can participate in the cohort meetings? Great question. 1 to 2 people maximum will attend each Capstone cohort meeting. The program lead indicated on your application, as Bailey mentioned, will attend every meeting, including the in-person meeting, just to have that consistency. If a second person is attending these meetings, the person should also consistently attend. What does mentoring with Windy City Harvest look like? Another great question. We want to know what you're looking to learn and what you'd like to improve. We're big on SMART goals. So that'll be kind of how we start, is just looking at what would be a specific, measurable, realistic attainable and timely goal for your garden based on those areas, categories that we discussed. So I'm going to kick it over to Britt to talk a little bit about what mentoring looks like for the educational programs, as well as for our workforce development core program.
Yeah, and so a lot of this is covered in the toolkit. So I think that's a really great place to check if you want a little bit of a deep dive. You can look under the youth development section, and that will cover our youth farm model that we've been running since 2003. But that's where we're using sustainable agriculture as a vehicle for social and emotional growth with high schoolers. So that's something we can definitely share a lot of information about how we've developed those programs, how we recruit, how we build leadership within our youth development programs, sharing our curriculum that we're using. And then for workforce development, you can look under the transitional jobs section in the toolkit. But that is our job training program. So it's a big piece of all the work that we're doing, is really setting people up for success in their next jobs. And we are specifically with our transitional jobs program working with people who have been involved with the justice system. So we can share more about how we do feedback and mentorship with that program, the environmental literacy curriculum that we use, and how we really use urban agriculture to develop transferable skills. And then for urban agriculture adult education, that includes our apprenticeship program. And then we also run some short courses and classes. And that is under the technical training section of the toolkit. But we can really talk a lot about how we use a cohort model to develop a community of practice in urban agriculture to help train the next generation of farmers.
Excellent. Thanks, Britt. We're going to kick it over to Paul to share some ways that we can support with developing food as medicine, Veggie RX programs, as well as farm production.
Thank you, Kelly. So within like the Veggie RX model, some of our contract models, as you can see in the toolkit, there are different kinds of methods in approaching partners and kind of establishing relationships, different kinds of like contracts and MOUs, different kinds of program model evaluations that we use that we could coach through or share. Also with like farm production, and especially within contracts, a lot of people want people to build out certain kinds of things. So any of our like build out models, diagrams, best practices that we've gone over throughout the years. And just in general, just like how do the contracts, what does the programming look like on these different kinds of sites? And any of the kinds of, specifics about the contracts with different kinds of partners within the different communities, trying to align objectives and also just like missions in the same kind of like direction. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. And I'm going to kick it over to Rosario to talk about the small farm business mentoring.
Hello again, everyone. So with small farm business, we are essentially supporting small farm incubator businesses that are getting kicked off after doing our 9-month apprenticeship program. So they have some of the technical skills under their belt, but I can also help extensively with technical skills in annual vegetable production. That is currently one of my roles, being a mentor for our current existing businesses. So we walk through things on producing throughout the season from spring through the fall, and then also on the technical side for the business component. I was an incubator myself before, so I can help them with navigating licensing through the city and building partnerships to be able to move off our land into additional land. So either partnerships through churches or partnerships through other land trusts or community organizations, other nonprofits and such like that. Extensive with marketing as well. Our current incubators enter into our market sales channels, so I can help with technical assistance with getting prepped on how would you sell differently from a farmer's market that you would to a wholesaler or directly to a wholesaler. So simple things such as pack sizes, quality control, pricing, communication between customers, and then also building a network of people that have similar goals. Some people don't necessarily want to keep going to farming. They want to go more into education. So partnering with other organizations that are also doing the same thing or have synergies with each other. And I like to say that my favorite crop is growing people. So building capacity within people so that they can increase their presence as small farm business owners.
Okay, thank you to the team. As you can see, it's kind of a dynamic set of mentoring that we feel confident in. And one of the great points that Paul made that I'd like to just emphasize is everything we do is within partnership and always driven by request from partners. So that's a framework of all of the work that we do. And that is something that we do bring to the table, is that experience working with health centers, corporations, developers, city colleges, some of the kind of similar areas that I'm sure many of the organizations here overlap with. So thank you for this great question. All right, next question. Will there be opportunities to set up tour dates with the Chicago Botanic Garden? So the time that we have planned with Windy City Harvest is September 14th and 15th. So next, almost a little less than a year from now. If you would like to visit the Chicago Botanic Garden, that would take place outside of this program.
Okay, thank you. So a question about funding. Are there restrictions for how the funds can be used? I talked about this a little bit already. There are a few restrictions. They are all listed in the budget form document that you'll fill out. So fringe benefits are not to exceed 15% of the budgeted amount, $50,000. Indirect costs are not to exceed 5%. Additionally, the budget must include costs associated with travel to the in-person Capstone Cohort meeting in Chicago. What is the range of award funds? As I mentioned, there is no range this year. It is different. All awards will be $50,000. Your budget total must equal $50,000 when you submit your application. Will the reporting requirements be listed on the website? We plan to send the reporting requirements directly to awardees after they are notified that they have been awarded. This will happen very early on to let awardees know exactly what they need to track, monitor throughout their program participation. And so thank you all for attending. If you have any additional questions, there's still time to put them into the Q&A right now, or you can email them directly to me. My email is here on the slide and on our website. Please visit the Q&A webpage. We'll update that with any of the questions you've asked today and their answers. And we'll be continuing to update that page. So it's a good place to keep checking in. These slides and the webinar recording will be available next week on our website, and you'll be able to find that on our main webpage. And then there are a few key dates that we've mentioned here on this final slide if you need to note them down or anything. But thank you all for attending today.